The beautiful city of San Sebastian, the home of the 1992 start to the Tour de France, now hosts again the 15th running of their own classic, the race from San Sebastian to San Sebastian. Michel Dernice of Motorola here on the left of our picture. Castorama saying their farewell to the peloton this year. The Kelme team, they'll be back again next year. This is Farfan, one of the strong riders of Kelme, and the champion of Italy, Gianni Bugno. This is round number 8 of the World Cup series of 11 riders. The Once boy there is Eric Breukink. This, the man everybody knows, of course, the now 5-time straight winner of the Tour de France, Miguel Indurain. The pressure will be on him to do well on home ground today. Indurain, a past winner of this race, and I wonder what mood he's in today as he rolls away here from the same start line, in fact, that the riders used for the start of the prologue time trial in the Tour de France back in 1992. 192 riders on the rollout, heading into the open countryside. There are 4 climbs on this route. Claudio Chiappucci on the far side talking with his teammate Enrico Zaina. One lone leader having established a lead here as the race now begins to move into the latter half of the event. It's 234 kilometres, and we'll have a look first of all at the opening contours of the race. It takes in, as I say, 4 climbs, but the big climb of the day will come near the end. And there it is, the first category climb of the Hais Gebel. And they climb that. That's always the springboard for the action. It is sort of the Poggio mountain, if you like, of the famous Milan-San Remo Classic. The riders will lay the basis out on the other 3 climbs, but the killer will come near the end, on the outskirts indeed of San Sebastian. And the man who set the trend all day, wearing 182, Felice Puttini of the Refin team. He's the Swiss national champion and has been indeed for the last 2 years, and that largely is his claim to fame over the last 2 seasons, of which he's been a professional rider, despite the fact he's 27 years of age. He hasn't been a pro that long. The champion of Switzerland in 94 and 95, and last year he came to really our note with his 12th place finish in the World Championships in Sicily, and that was a great ride by Puttini, and backed up before the Worlds by 10th place in the Tour of Switzerland. A rider who will gamble. Well, perhaps he's gambling for his teammates who are still in that field, which is slowly being reduced, more like a war of attrition as he sets the pace here. The San Sebastian Classic, Spain's only classic race. It began back in 1981. For the first 2 years, a home win in Mariano Lajarreta, who's now retired. Indeed, throws in a little bit of Basque commentary on Spanish television. And then came the victory of Claude Coquillon, the Belgian climber, also retired now. And Indurain got his victory back in 1990, and since then hasn't appeared in the top 3 finishes. Last year's winner not here, and the Castorama team are very disenchanted by Armand de las Cuevas, who did not make the start line. Now the field are beginning to reel in the breakaway here of Puttini. He went away, in fact, on a climb after 44 kilometres, and he's been out in front now for in excess of 120, and his lead has been up to 12 minutes and 19 seconds. But how often is it that the big professionals gamble on the breakaway of 1 or 2 riders in a single-day classic race, allow them to run, and then slowly reel them in? This looks like the Festina rider Jean-Cyril Robin, former world record holder when he was a junior rider. And Herminio Diaz-Zabala is the balding rider in the Once team, about 4 men down. Diaz-Zabala, probably the number 1 domestique. Well, let's make him number 2, along with Neil Stevens on the Once squad. Those 2 riders worked their hearts out for the services of their more illustrious teammates like Eric Breukink, Laurent Jalabert and Alex Zula for the big races. Jalabert very much still challenging for a World Cup number 1 finish here, and still in contention in the race today. So too is Johan Museeuw. If he could win today, I think that would stitch it up for him. The event spread over 11 races, but let's not forget that Johan Museeuw started out well. His main victory of the season, his main aim of the season indeed, to win the Tour de Flanders, which he did in April, and since then he's found himself near the top. There's Alex Zula in yellow, also paying great attention as he has steadily moved up the overall rankings this year, and Laurent Jalabert just flashing through on the inside of our picture there. Well, Jalabert, what a superb season that man has had. winning Milan-San Remo and Paris-Nice right out at the beginning of the year. What a comeback indeed from that crash he had at Armentières at the opening stage of the Tour de France a year ago. Gaviz, anxious to do something. Ugrimov is there on the right. Caught a glimpse too of Franco Ballerini, the winner of Paris-Roubaix, finally getting the victory he was hunting for. And the tempo now is pretty rapid, and it's the sort of tempo a lot of teammates here throwing the weight behind the chase, which is a good sign that there are a number of leaders feel they have the confidence. But of course this is the build-up now to try and get to the mountain first, and to try and hold your position near the head of a peloton doing in the region of 55 kilometers an hour takes a lot of skill and a lot of nerve as well. Many of you may be watching the video having spent time racing in Belgium. You'll know that the small hills around Flanders, if you ride even an amateur race there, you'll fight for 30 kilometers to hold the top 15 position before you make the turn onto the small climbs. And that's what's happening here right now. The riders at the front of the peloton trying to defend their positions, allow nobody else to come up. Now this is Johnny Veltz here. We haven't seen too much of Johnny throughout the season as part of the Motorola team, but there he is now setting the pace. Well, maybe he's trying to keep the pace high because Lance Armstrong is riding this event, and Armstrong has had a very good performance since the Tour de France. He's come out very strong from the Tour de France, and that was the first tour that Lance finished. Near the end at Limoges, he won a stage, and a very, very sad tour, of course, for the Motorola team with the death of Fabio Casatelli. But Armstrong seems to have come out of it physically very, very good indeed. He rode well in the Leeds Classic a week ago. 60 kilometers to go. That's 38 miles from the finish. And I can only assume that Motorola have been told to ride by Armstrong. He is the obvious choice. And keep the pace high. Puttini, the gap is now down to 4 minutes 18, and that's well catchable now. 192 riders on the start line this morning. Now, don't forget that although we're in Spain, we are in an area of Spain where the people are very proud Basques. They have their own language, Euskadi, and in fact here we would refer to this race as being Donostia to Donostia rather than San Sebastian to San Sebastian. So you might see the odd caption on the screen because this is courtesy of our Basque television friends. The names might not quite be the same as the ones I'm telling you. A long, long turn by Johnny Veltz at the front. Now a little bit of help coming his way. He'd probably be a little bit relieved. They may have sensed that the pace is dropping just that little bit. They've got to keep the pressure on now if they're going to bring back Puttini. They want him before the start of the final climb because then they want to start thinking of other things. Laine is Berrutia here, the balding man who looks almost the identical of the man behind him, who is Diaz Zabala. And a study in motion down there from below our helicopter. The Gaviz team also setting the pace nice and high here. Ugrimov obviously a candidate. At this time of the year, riders find the form coming and going. They get good days and bad days after the big tours are over, and this man has had a good day without doubt, Puttini, but now I think the bad part is about to arrive. He's clearly slowing down. His break at one stage after 95 kilometers was at 12 minutes and 19 seconds. There's Johan Museeuw, the leader of the World Cup. He always denies it's a main aim of his to win the trophy, yet he's had a second place overall for the past 2 years. Now he is in with a real chance of going that one little place better. Volomek here, just passing through. A man that Columbia and indeed Motorola hope can pull off something special at the World Championships. Leonardo Sierra. Carrera taking the riders through on the inside. A lot of movement. They sensed as they're starting the climb, a little bit of movement here at the front, a chance to gain ground on the men that have been setting the pace, reposition themselves at the front of the peloton. Now looking down below us there, and there he is, so we can see him now, Max Chiandri. He is the rider who has ridden so well in Britain. We've claimed him as a British rider this year. He applied for a British licence, which he's entitled to, because he was born in Derby in Derbyshire in the centre of Britain, and now this year he decided to take out a British licence in the hope that he would finally get to a World Championship, because the Italian Federation simply never selected him. And Jalabert moving very rapidly, very smoothly through the peloton. There are riders try for 50 kilometres to do this. He's done it in just one swish of the pedals. This man seems to float this year. He can't do a thing wrong. And Jalabert now beginning to challenge the world #1 and could well claim that position. He will line up for the Tour of Spain, Laurent Jalabert. Now, Indurain is rumoured not to be wanting to ride that event. Tony Rominger won't start, the winner for the past 3 years. A good ride in the Tour of Spain by Laurent Jalabert would probably give him the #1 slot. Over the top of the small climb and on the way down again, Once are now beginning to pull their organisation together. They always feel the pressure, of course, in Spain, but this is their style wherever they race. Remember their marvellous Tour de France. It looks as though Neil Stevens is now the workhorse of the moment, followed by Herminio Diaz-Zabala. They're now going to try and shut this race down and hope that Jalabert can go clear on the final climb. That's the plan. The rest of the race knows it as well. They just hope that they have the answer when the time comes. 7 wins before the month of January was out for Neil Stevens, but they were all in Australia. There's where we are. We're approaching the Heath Gabelle. 55 kilometres still to ride. It's about 42 miles. And you note just by where the arrow is flashing there is one small climb which is steep and could split the field before they actually descend and start the final climb up the Heath Gabelle. It's an 8-kilometre climb, by the way, with a 6-kilometre descent. 53 kilometres, and this is the ref-in rider, Puttini. And these beautiful roads made for cycling around this area of San Sebastian, right on the northern coast. We're very, very close at times to the French frontiers. The way the Tour de France went, it went over the climb at the Heath Gabelle before it went through the borders and then headed slowly but surely up towards the big mountains. Now you can always recognise this man, the way he sticks his elbows out and just pedals. Herminio Diaz-Zabala. I became quite a friend with Herminio in Australia this year, where he came for 3 weeks and we went cycling together. He did the pedalling and the pushing, and I enjoyed the day. Moto 2 indicating, as always, we're following the second group on the road. The first group, loosely speaking, is the one-man group of Felice Puttini, and there he is. And I think looking down, and by the fact that the cars are coming through, I would say this gap is down to about 35-40 seconds. He's made his gamble. He may well have helped teammates, you know, because they're still down there. They've had the chance to have an easy ride with him out in front for so long. It's 130 kilometres he's been out there now. Grabbed a nice slice of publicity, but once the Once boys get to the front, I think there are trouble. Neil Stevens, his hair longer than ever, as he now prepares for his upcoming marriage to a Spanish lady. Another rider just moving through there too, Johan Brunel. The rider had a marvellous Tour de France, snatching the stage, which rather annoyed Miguel Indurain when he won at Liège. But even so, if you were Belgian, your king was waiting, I think you'd try and win as well. 37 seconds, it's all over, and coming down as we watch. And coming down rather quickly too. That's an interesting graphic and a new one on me, but now we're seeing the riders being caught before our very eyes. 34 seconds, the latest gap, so they must be moving at nearly twice the speed now of Puttini. Team Masseur passing a drink, but you can see now the fire is all gone. He knows they're coming. The worst thing I think that can happen to a professional cyclist at this level is when he sees the following cars go by in large numbers. He knows that the race referees have sent them away because the field are catching up. And the finish agonizingly close as well. But even so, you've still got that 8-kilometre climb, which will be rather like a big wall now to Puttini, who will just simply have to hang on and try and scrape in for a few World Cup points. One or two cracks beginning to appear in that big peloton as well. And it's all under the impetus of Oncé. They've got 4 or 5 men setting the pace. Lush green fields here, and in fact the weather not like you might expect in Spain. Oh my goodness me, just feel the pain in those legs now. Puttini has hit the wall here, and if he looks over his shoulder, he's about to see the main train on its way up. And there they are. They finish it off so quickly when they come for the kill. A lead of 12 minutes and 19 seconds swept away by Neil Stevens there without even a look to his right. Puttini making no effort to get on here. He's hoping he might tip over the top of this small climb and catch a wheel. Otherwise, he's on for a long, lonely ride now back into San Sebastian. Oncé have bigger fish to fry. They want Jalabert to be pretty close. And in fact, Jalabert is about 4th or 5th down there in the line. Miguel Indurain still very much in the hunt here. Indurain thinking of a world title perhaps in Colombia, where he speaks the same language, of course. And the story is that he might be going to do his training in America, preparing for the World Championship. Now that looked to me as though it was Marco Pantani, number 72. Those lithe little legs of Marco, now fighting back from the injuries received, which kept him out of the Tour of Italy, but saw him win 2 stages when he was finding his form in the Tour de France. 2 stages that I think anybody would have loved to have won, 2 big mountain stages. So, Big Mig, as we always call him, at last looking for a victory other than the Tour de France, I feel. It's probably the race which is most local to his home, just outside Pamplona. It'll take him about 2 hours at the outside to drive home from the finish. Neil Stevens, I was telling you he had 7 wins before he left Australia this year. 1 was his 2nd winning of the Australian road title. He doesn't race back in Australia very often at all. And he says he'll go back next year as well, but probably without the team. That's Flavio Vanzella, the yellow jersey in the Tour de France, looking over his shoulder. He took the lead when the race was in Great Britain last year. Lost it soon afterwards. In fact, he lost it to Britain's Sean Yates on the road down from Le Havre. Now it's a case of catch a wheel if you can here. There'll be those riders feeling good and there'll be those riders feeling bad. Just to the right of our picture, Motorola have got their man, Alvaro Mejia, so perhaps in fact the pacemaking by Johnny Welch wasn't for Lance Armstrong, but indeed was for Alvaro Mejia. It's a course, if he can get away on the climb of Jaizkibel, well, he can hold on to the finish with a good descent. You can escape, it's the springboard, and if you go in a small group, Mejia might equip himself quite well. Well, we're off that little small approach climb now to Jaizkibel, and you can see the signs behind the riders taking them a totally different route to San Sebastian. This is the sort of B route where you can go off. This is the tourist route, if you like, that will take them over the mountain and then swing them back down to the coast and into the big city itself. It is a beautiful city, San Sebastian, nestling on the Bay of Biscay, and a very, very jagged and what can be an unfriendly coastline in bad weather. Diaz de Bala turning on the style yet again, as he's done in every race he's ridden this year. Here's a man who's worth every penny Oncé pay him. Never thinks of winning, in fact virtually never does win a race. But the amount of work he puts in for his team leaders make him one of the finest riders you'll ever see. Speaks French as well as Spanish and has that personality that makes you feel you can speak to him even when you can't. He's such a friendly guy. And there is the descent. There you can see those in contention and those hanging on from this helicopter shot here. A long thin line at the back with lots of spaces between the wheels. And the cars behind indicating that the speed at this point are in excess, and believe it or not, of 100 kilometers an hour. And there's the man doing the pacemaking. The ton-up boy. And Alex Zula has also found his way up to the front. Jalabert is tagged in at the tail of the line. And it looks as though Leonis Berruthia has called it a day. He's done his work at the front. Bronze is now slowly slipping down to the tail of the group here as we're just about getting on to the start of the climb here. As riders who have made the pace, the domestiques, are going back so quickly now. You can see them dropping through the peloton as the other riders try to scrabble for the high finish. They know if they're at or near the front over the top of the climb, they're in for a good finish down in San Sebastian. There's where we are, right at the base of the 8 kilometers climb now. And this will lift the riders up to the skyline before they dive very steeply down before the jagged run into the finish at San Sebastian. Once have done just about everything they can at the moment. Chevy, former stage winner in the Tours of Spain and France. And Tilly Gouvenou from the GAN team. And if any of you are wondering if Chris Boardman has recovered enough to ride this race, the answer is he hasn't yet from his crash in the Tour de France, but the news is he probably will come back for the last couple of long-distance classics of the season. Not with winning thoughts, but with thoughts of getting himself in shape for a great season in 1996, when, of course, he will defend, more than likely, his Olympic Pursuit Championship in Atlanta, Georgia. Inside 25 miles or 40 kilometers to go. Big Sean, one more season left in his legs, so Sean Yates tells us, next year, and I think a lot of riders in the peloton will be pleased about that, because in fact he rides so well. The older he gets, the better he seems to get. He's still adamant he will not ride in the Tour de France next year, but once Yates gets to the front, it's for a reason, and I think the reason is riding in third place. Lance Armstrong has now moved right up towards the leaderboard here. Yates looks over to see where he is, makes sure that he's right in his drags in the slipstream there. And Yates is setting the pace here as the climb starts. Now this is a good tactic. Now Yates would not be doing this if he hadn't spoken with Armstrong or perhaps Mechir to see how they are feeling at this stage of the race. If they said they're feeling good, then Yates has gone to the front to turn the style on to try and crack this field in a big way. I wonder if next year Sean Yates, who always has ridden well in the Paris-Roubaix, will put in one big bid to make the win. I wonder indeed if the team, the Motorola team, will work to help him win that classic and let his season and his career finish on such a high note. He always rides well in Paris-Roubaix. He's one of the few riders in the world who loves the race. He was 11th this year, by the way, but he could so easily have been 6th or 7th. He was in the group sprint. Well, this is the little ups and downs as we approach the climb, and now we've turned onto the climb. That's indicated by all of the pavement artists from the Basque area of Spain. A region that loves cycling, produced some great champions, including Marino Lajarreta, the winner of this classic for the first 2 years of its being, back in 81 and 82. Incidentally, Lajarreta beat Graham Jones, the British rider, into second place back in 1981, and that was one of Graham's finest performances. Now, looking briefly from the camera there, I think it was Melchior Mauri and Alex Zula who got to the head of the field. One of the Euskadi riders. This is an interesting team, this Euskadi team. They're from the local area, and they're sponsored by various companies who group together. And none of the companies take due publicity. They just call the team from the region, which is the language they speak here, Euskadi, and they are riding this classic event. But it's a little bit too far for that one rider who's dropped back, and it is Mauri on the front. Former winner of the Tour of Spain, and what a great Tour de France this man had this year. Jalabert right with him. So we've got the famous tandem from the Tour de France now back in action here. Melchior Mauri and Laurent Jalabert. Jalabert cutely looking around to see who is in this group and who has made the split with him. I think we've got Escartine in the group here. As a Motorola rider slipped out of my shot so quickly that I didn't catch who it was, but whoever it was, his legs just folded up. And the pain now in the legs. This is Zenon Yaskula. It was Jaskula, by the way, who eliminated the majority of the field in the Tour of Switzerland with a great mountain time trial a couple of years ago. So much so they had to let most of the riders back in. But Jaskula now a little bit down the field here. This is Udo Boltz, who had a good Tour de France last year when he finished 9th. Not quite so strong this year, but he won the German title in June, and that's his only win of the year thus far. This looks as though we've got Laurent Dufaux, the Festina rider here. Swiss man, who's now decided that time has come to open up the gaps, and Dufaux turning the screw very, very tightly here. And Jalabert will probably be saying thank you very much. That's just the move I've been waiting for. Immediately gets his wheel. And Mechir. Well, I have to say that Mechir is not looking quite so comfortable now. He's locked into his position there. He's trying to get onto the back wheel here of Alex Zula, concentrating very hard. Zula also looking a little bit tired right now. And both of those riders in distress, because we're going back up here to the leading group. The zip of his jersey all the way down there, Johan Museeuw, but the World Cup man in a race which he perhaps might not see as the sort of course to suit him, with this big climb coming towards the end. And we've got the Mappe rider Della Santa also making the split here on the right of our picture. Della Santa, one of the riders perhaps long term who's going to do very, very well. Lance Armstrong has made the move, and he said the mistake was certainly not that, Lance. He's made the right choice to come up to the lead group here. So it was Armstrong indeed that Motorola were working for today, and he's trying to get into the first selection on the climb. There's the bird's eye view of the race now as the front of the field is beginning to split up. We know that Dufaux is here, Jalabert, Museeuw, Della Santa, Armstrong. Max Chiandri has also made the split, so Britain has a man here too. And the little man here is Leonardo Piepoli, the Refin rider. Now remember, it was the Refin rider who was on the attack, Puttini. So maybe the tactic was to hope that Piepoli could come through and make a decision. Well, there he is in the red, and one of the finds, if anything, of the breakaway. Jalabert has got to be the rider to beat. Jalabert, the man to challenge Johan Museeuw for a longer-term shot at the World Cup. Della Santa a little bit annoyed by the fact that our motorbike is getting a bit too close here. Too much incentive for Laurent Jalabert as we've accelerated away. Jalabert has turned off the gas just a little bit. Now they've got a split. I can't quite see from this position how many are in this group. It could be as many as 10 riders. The strong men have made the decision. And again, Jalabert now deciding to go. He had a good look at the camera there. He may well have said something about it being too close, because he's trying to split up this group. Freewheels immediately, reason being that Museeuw has marked him out well. And Museeuw is only worried about one man, and the rest can go away, I think, as far as Johan is concerned. He's going to make sure he stays near Laurent Jalabert, and you can't blame him for that. The World Cup is coming to an end, and Museeuw is in a very strong position indeed. Indurain is also up here. The colours of green, white and red, the champion of Italy, so that means that Gianni Bugno, and now Della Santa is going to try and chase the motorbike as well. Stefano Della Santa started off with a great win overall in the Ruta del Sol this year. Followed it up in August with the second place in the Tour of Burgos. So he has the form. And Max Chiandri has joined him. So we've now got Della Santa and Max Chiandri. They've come together at the front. Now, the cat and mouse tactics, it's worth going to these two, because they know that Jalabert, Museeuw are probably not going to counter the move. Museeuw certainly won't, because you'll see the big points going for the World Cup competition to one of these two riders. And in fact, Jalabert knows it. Jalabert has caused the reaction, and not surprisingly, right behind him is Johan Museeuw. So we've now got a build-up of 5 riders, but the race is trying to regroup here. Della Santa has caused the problem. Mappe man, Stefano Della Santa, the #1 team. on the UCI World Rankings. There now is Lance Armstrong. And I think that's Bruno Kengialter he's with down there. And in fact, it looks to me as though they've gone across to the leaders now. The helicopter's pulled back, so Armstrong and Kengialter appear to have joined the front runners as well. We've got 3, 6, 8 riders down there. The Benesto man is certainly Miguel Indurain, so he hasn't gone with the counter-attack. And I suspect that many riders will watch for Miguel to try and make the move, and as a result, he may have decided he hasn't quite got it. There's Bunyo. And there is Big Mig going through, keeping the tempo nicely. Bunyo wants a bit more help. The man that started the initial attack on the climb, Laurent Dufaux, now not quite so sprightly. He's sitting in the slipstream there of Indurain. Back to the leaders. De La Santa heading Max Chiandri. Just behind Chiandri, we've got Laurent Jalabert. This has got to be a great ride for Jalabert now. He knows he's got the terrific form. Leonardo Pippoli is doing the ride of his life in this leading group. He's the only rider in red, a commentator's delight, because we can pick him out quite easily. Just latching on. We've got 3, 6, 7, 8 riders now, and the man getting across is Laurent Dufaux, that small figure from the Festina team. And in fact, there's a regrouping here because they've slowed at the front. The counter-attacks didn't come, and we've got Indurain has got back. So too, indeed, has Gianni Bunyo. Marco Pantani, this little squat man, he makes you feel as though his saddle's too low and he's too short on the stem, but yet this is a position which he gets on with so well, and he climbs like a dream. Now this is the exposed section as we come up towards the top of the Isabel. A long road where you can always see the breakaways. You can also see what a tremendous crowd has turned out here in Basque Spain to support the race. Calming here. Jalabert drops into the pack. And we've got Frank Vandenbroek, the man who went from Lotto to Mappe, has come onto the back here, number 18. This young man who unfortunately had a big argument with his uncle, Jean-Luc Vandenbroek. He left Lotto and he's gone across to the Mappe team, but he is beginning to show the signs of being quite a single-day cyclist. There is, I think, a lot of class there, and Jean-Luc Vandenbroek spotted it first, but Mappe have claimed him. Up over the top, Bunyo comes up over the top, followed by Stefano De La Santa, and De La Santa now looks as though he's going to have a go down the hill. It's a long exposed descent for a while. Here's the man that the French have nicknamed Dumbo because of his protruding ears, an unkind nickname indeed, but he doesn't seem to mind. And Pantani lost a little bit of ground on the climb there. And Indurain also lost on the climb, so Indurain hanging on in, and just about. He's not having the great ride that I thought he might have had at the start, and also in a little bit of trouble too is Gianni Bunyo. And this is the rider everybody says is finding his best form again. More or less all together, the front group, general regrouping because of the stop-starting of the attackers, but Indurain now is finding wheels a little bit more difficult to hold. The great days of July are once again a memory, and what a memory too. Indurain now finding in the San Sebastian Classic the roads are not that kind to him. When he won this race back in 1990, he beat Laurent Jalabert, by the way, and the great Irish rider Sean Kelly. Tempo riding by Gianni Bunyo, followed by Leonardo Pippoli. And behind them, I'm pretty sure it was Lance Armstrong, still very much in at the kill. Lance has always been a great single-day rider. Now, can he get in on the decision move today? Armstrong, remember, he's got great memories of Spain. Some happy, some unhappy. Perhaps unhappy will be his Olympic Games in 1992, when he didn't do the ride he expected. This is Dufaux here, now losing a little bit of ground as well. And just continuing our little tale of Lance Armstrong, of course, this was his very first professional race back in 1992 after he'd finished the Olympic Games, and it wasn't a great race for him either. He finished last, but he had the courage to finish, and it was on that day he really did find out what professional bike riding was all about. The breakaway once again has been split asunder here. It's a false flat over the top of the Hais Gabel. Those that have got the power to keep the pressure on have done a lot of damage. Dufault is down there. Indurain is down there as well. Kengi Alto, I think, is the third rider. Armstrong's looking very strong too, and as one must say so of Pipoli. And the man who's trying to break this field to pieces is Gianni Bugno, of all people, a champion of Italy. Perhaps he is refining his old form. A man that had a double world championship in his heydays and twice back-to-back stage wins at Alpe d'Huez in the Tour de France. And Bugno not looking for any help at all here as he continues over the top of the climb. Sitting at the back is Max Chandri, who's read another winning move today. He's got one World Cup victory under his belt this year. And Chandri rumoured to be going to the Motorola team, back in fact to Motorola next year. Although he's very much an Italian, of course, he was born in an English-speaking country. He seems very happy with the English-speaking riders. Almost had a contretemps there with the motorbike, which has disturbed his rhythm. He's riding on the wheel of Johan Museeuw, who's now dreaming of perhaps the World Cup final victory here, because a good result today and Jalabert will have his work cut out to continue to be a challenger. Jalabert just in front. And in fact, Johan Museeuw riding this race like he would ride a stage race if he were the race leader. He's just marking the man that matters most, and he's going wherever Jalabert goes. Still Bugno setting a tremendous pace from Piepoli. And just behind him is Lance Armstrong. Armstrong has made another good move here. So the man we've come to know as the champion of Liège-Bastogne-Liège with two great rides over the past 2 years is now beginning to show an infinity towards the San Sebastian Classic as well, the race which started out for him his professional career. Gianni Bugno, such an attractive bike rider when he's on form or when he's in the right mood, but you never quite know when that day is going to come with Gianni. But right now he's looking good. Although our camera's not showing the chase group isn't that far behind. Only one rider from Oncé making it. Johan Bruneel almost made it and fell back. Bugno still out there in front, the misty conditions continuing. And the Basque flag waving. Well, I have to say, no Basque rider has made the split. This is the chase group now. A brief glimpse there of Dufault. And Indurain gets special cheers as he goes through, but he's in something like 12th position as he's gone over the top of the climb. This is the third group going over. They're still only seconds behind, you see. A good descent by any of these riders could contact the leaders. There's still a little way to go down to the finish. Nobody else left in contention. That is all that seems to be left of the main peloton, because most of the team vehicles seem to have been there. Back up with the leaders. Piepoli sitting at the back. Armstrong keeping an eye on everybody, still going through and doing a little bit at the front though. Piepoli not so with him now. The young rider, the inexperienced rider, sitting at the back behind Laurent Jalabert. 26 seconds. They're calling it the Indurain group, which indicates in fact that Indurain has got back into the main chase behind. Bugno is leading this group and they're hovering around 26 seconds. Now somebody's putting the pressure on the front here, going downhill. It looks to me as though Armstrong is trying to attack. Now he has a big habit of pushing on the pressure, going down hills when he thinks riders perhaps are not paying the attention they might pay. He's leading on the descent. It's a 6-kilometre descent, by the way. Armstrong down there first. Jalabert trying to contact as well. Now that will signal, I would have thought, a reaction from Johan Museeuw. It looks as though Leonardo Piepoli may have been fried on that climb after all, because he's now not taking part in this group. He's just trying to hold a high position here. But any position finishing with a group of this quality will be a fine ride for that man. One to be cherished for the scrapbook for sure. There's Lance Armstrong. Jalabert making contact. And it looks as though it's the blue jersey there of Max Chiandri who started the descent. We're still calling it the Bunyo group, but I don't think Bunyo is right up at the head of it right now. 24 seconds, so Indurain is slowly dragging that group back into the contention, if indeed it's Indurain doing the driving. Piepoli trying now to rely pretty heavily on getting a free lift back up to the breakaway, which is establishing on the way down. Another skill in international cycling, the skill to go down hills absolutely perfectly on the corners and to produce the high speed. One or two riders are hesitant, and Greg LeMond is one of the best exponents at this. He could descend so well. Well, this is Bunyo here with Piepoli and slowly bringing Piepoli back up to a couple of riders. But there were originally 8 in this group. And the 2 are missing right out at the front, as far as I can see, possibly 3, and there they are, Jalabert, Armstrong and Max Chiandri. Now we'll get some idea. There's the rest of them. One passenger with Piepoli. Museo is the rider being left to do all of the work. The other 3 know he's got to, because he won't want to lose Laurent Jalabert, so he's trying to hold Jalabert and he might come back yet. I think we've got the first 3 groups on the road here, and they're only spread across 25 seconds, and we've still got 29.8 kilometers to run, which is about 19 miles to go. Time for the race to be made cut and dry, or indeed time for it to totally regroup and have a group sprint. A large crowd waiting for the arrival back in San Sebastian. Now have the pleasure of following it on television sets, of course, as they run down towards the finish, away from the top of the mountain. This is live coverage. And they will be willing Miguel Indurain to rejoin this front group, that's for sure. But right now we have a very international breakaway here with, and in fact it looks to me as though Chiandri's got a problem. The way he took that corner, he was very worried. In fact, I'd say he's a flat tyre. Well, that is terrible. Chiandri cannot believe his luck. Well, Max Chiandri in line there for 2 straight World Cup victories, has gone out of this chase group, or lead group rather, with a puncture, a flat tyre, leaving Jalabert and Lance Armstrong now in the lead. And you know, I think these 2 as well might be a little disappointed in seeing that happen, because 3 had a better chance than 2 of holding off the chase groups behind. But the bad thing for Max Chiandri is that there wouldn't be a service car on hand, because there wasn't a big enough gap. He'll have to wait till the chase group comes by and then hope he snatches a wheel. And I would suggest that by the time he does, he'll be back with Miguel Indurain. Well, that really is sad for Max Chiandri, the British import, who had great victory in the Leeds Cup World Cup recently, and was heading for what could well have been 2 straight wins here. Back-to-back and World Cup events this season. Now, Lance Armstrong making the most of his move here. Jalabert has found he's got a strong ally here in Lance. They know each other very well, of course. They've ridden mostly all the same events this year. And Armstrong completing his first Tour de France, seeing Paris at the end for the first time in 3 tries, and not arriving feeling weak, but on the contrary, he arrived feeling extremely good. And that's coming clear now as he makes his run down off the mountain, dodges all the traffic signs, yellow flags held by the police. Yellow in Europe means danger rather than red. And Armstrong now running down back towards the coast, heading in towards San Sebastian. A chance now perhaps for America to get victory. These riders here would have a different idea. Stefano Della Santa at the back. Laurent Dufaux has made the split, so he's got across as well. And Jalabert prepared to do more than his work here, I think, now with Lance, because Jalabert knows he has a chance to score good World Cup points, which would keep this championship wide open. Museo knows it as well. Armstrong had a terrific season. It all went well for him after winning the Tour du Pont in grand style in the United States after finishing second for a couple of years. And now Once you get one big win under your belt, you suddenly begin to believe in yourself as well. He's been looking for the move quite clearly. He planned to go on the last climb. He moved his men up to see the race got to that last climb as one unit. He's profited by the heavy work of the Onse team. He's made the decisive moves, and now he's only got one man to worry about in Laurent Jalabert. Unless, of course, these four catch up again, and Museo is having his say here because he's doing most of the work. In fact, whenever our cameras come back here, I haven't seen anybody help, but there we are. Bunyo is prepared to help. And the group there continuing to chase down. 19 kilometres left to go. That 11 miles still to go to the finish. These are the suburbs of Donostia, or San Sebastian, as we would call it. And the crowd, this is their big day here in northern Spain. And they're watching a man who isn't Spanish but speaks the language fluently, Laurent Jalabert, and of course rides for the most famous of Spanish cycling teams, Once. Max Chiandri, so he's got back into this group. He must have got a wheel change pretty quickly indeed, but my goodness me, he must be trying to blot out of his mind what might have been. There's where we are now, a few little climbs to come, little ripples before we run into the finish. And poor Max Chiandri now having to try and put right and readdress the problem which has taken him away from this leading group. But there is a slowing here by the two leaders. It's almost as if they can sense the return of Max Chiandri. It's about now when I wish our cameraman could turn round on the saddle, because I think the group is coming right back to them. And that is the group containing Max Chiandri there, and also Miguel Indurain. Now let's have a look along the road, because they will be the third group on the road here now as we course through the suburbs of San Sebastian. And that group seems to have grown a little bit. And we move along the road, we'll pick up then the group which will contain Johan Museo, Stefano Della Santa, Gianni Bugno and Leonardo Piepoli. And there they are. And in fact, it looks as though it's Della Santa doing a lot of the work here, trying desperately now to reach the front group. He has had a very strong ride today, Della Santa. The Mappe man. Piepoli is along for the ride. He's sitting at the back of the group. They're saying it's 50 seconds between Indurain and Chiandri's group and Jalabert. And these four we're looking at the moment, they are in between. Let's look over his shoulder there from Johan Museo. I think he taken one look at the face of poor old Piepoli and decided there's no point in asking him to help, because I don't think he's got the legs now. Bugno back up with the leaders. They're still holding a tempo. I thought they were faltering, but it seems they found their riding style again here now. Never afraid to do a turn at the front is Laurent Jalabert. Now, in fact, are the group coming up? Because the way the chief commissaire is gesticulating, he's trying to clear the backlog of vehicles between the two, and it could well be that the gaps are closing down. This is group 2 on the road. He's got the Indurain Chiandri group just behind, and we've got these two out in front. So Lance and Laurent are now trying to hold off what is a very concerted effort to bring them back here, and they're not safe yet. In fact, Jalabert stepping on the pedals there, does a quick turn, eases up and lets Lance Armstrong come through. The big legs of the former professional triathlete. Oops. Oh, and a touch of cramp possibly coming here for Jalabert. He made sure he did that when Armstrong didn't see it. And the gap is still there, nudging around 28, 29 seconds. And you know, that could be enough. It's taking the race so long to claw back just a few seconds. Museo here has gone back to his team car to try and find out exactly what is going on with the two. There's Della Santa, who is quite willing to work here, of course, with his teammate, Johan Museo. It looks as though Museo is feeling pretty happy with the way things are going, even so. After all, on a race where perhaps he may not have been expected to exceed, he's now beginning to show signs of a high finish, certainly. He's in the first 6, and with his sprint, I'm quite sure he could make it 3rd at worst. And he might get better than that if he can bring back those two leaders. There's the young up-and-coming star of the day there, Leonardo Piepoli. But right now, he was just hoping his day was done because he hasn't come off the back of these riders since the climb of the Haït Gabel. The cloud staying with us all day today, dispelling all those lovely pictures we have of sunny Spain. In fact, it's been not very pleasant at all, although it's been a good type of day for cycle racing. Now, Bunyo wants a little bit of help. I don't see the tyres down. This is the group. And there is the ref-in rider. Manager's going to have a little word here with Leonardo Piepoli. Probably a little word of encouragement, saying it's not too far to go now and you're on a real ride, don't crack. This is the third group on the road, and maybe the ref-in rider has been told they are closing in a little bit, if they are. And this is the group containing Miguel Indurain, you can see down there, going through in third place, and Max Chiandri also working down there. Also in that group is Laurent Dufaux and Frank van den Broek. And they're still nudging it clear, 34 seconds and hovering. So the big man, Lance Armstrong, the lone escape expert, we've seen him as he won at Limoges with a great dash towards the line there. United States, by the way, have never won a World Single-Day Classic race in all of their history. They've done most things over the last few years with the great riders like Greg LeMond and Andy Hampston. They've never won a single-day Classic. LeMond has come close, but he never got the victory, and for that matter, so too has Armstrong in the past. Don't forget he finished second in the Grand Prix of Zurich in the past. This is becoming a cat and mouse pursuit now, and once you see riders going alongside team cars asking questions, it means they're beginning to feel a little bit desperate. Just a general regrouping here at the front of the chase group. Bruno Kengialto, who had a quick word with his team cars, sprinted back up to the group. They're not making the progress at all now, and I think that it's only this group of four who are going to have any chance, if anybody has any chance now, of getting across to those two leaders. Certainly Stefano Della Santa hasn't lost any hope at all. He's driving this group along now to try and drag Johan Zeo, his teammate, back into the action. There they are. This isn't a group that's lost hope at all. They're still going quickly. 13 kilometers to go, just over 7.5 miles to the finish now, and still the hills are coming thick and fast. They're only short climbs, but they're annoying. Armstrong is finding they're interfering with his rhythm. Bunyo is still driving well, so too Museo. Only the man at the back here, Piepoli, is now just hanging on. More information coming to the breakaway, and it might well be that the gap is coming down. And the Motorola driver here, I'm not sure whether it's Henny Kuiper or Jim Okovits in the car today, but they're going to tell him that they've got to keep going because they haven't given up behind. And Jalabert and Armstrong are well aware of it. Now, Jalabert doesn't understand English, and for that matter, I don't think that Lance Armstrong understands Spanish, so they're on equal terms at the moment. Jalabert a Frenchman, of course, but I think that Lance is beginning to pick up a few words of French these days. But the on-site team manager Saez always speaks to Laurent in Spanish. And Bunyo, he's ridden extremely well in this race today as Gianni Bunyo. Always riding with determination, indicating that he might be thinking of a good ride in the upcoming World Championships, which was the wrong end of the year this year, of course, for everybody. They've moved them into October. And all the tired face of Laurent Dufaux, but he never gives up, does Laurent. Bruno Kengialto goes through as well. This is the chase group now. Frank van den Broek is still here. There's Max Chiandri on the right of our picture. And there is Miguel Indurain, still mixing it with company in the third group. What a marvellous man. There's Max with the leading duo, and now having to recover at the back. Van den Broek just behind. And now we've got Casagrande in the yellow jersey, setting the pace at the front, and Paolo Lanfranchi who is also here, another rider who rode well in the Tour, come into the picture at the very late stages of the race. Good roads again as they continue on another descent. Every pedal rev bringing these two closer and closer. They went over the top of the Haït Gabel. Armstrong was the man that made the move, followed by Chandry. They were joined by Laurent Jalabert. Then Chandry punctured on the way down, and it's left just the two of them to try and hold off this chase group of four. Museo putting his weight behind the chase now. Johan Museo, what an incredible season that Johan has had, even without a victory in prospect in the World Cup. He's had such a wonderful... He won the general classification of the Dunkirk 4-day, which, by the way, is a 6-day race, but we've always stuck with its original title, the 4 days of Dunkirk. He was 5th in the Leeds World Cup event, and that kept him right in the thick of it. And of course, as I said earlier, he won the Tour of Flanders for a second time in 3 years, and he was second in between, and the man that won in between was in fact Gianni Bugno. And now they're forming a strange alliance in the chase down of these two riders out front. A marvellous world cycle racing is. 10 kilometres to go, just over 6 miles from the finish. They've hung on, they've dangled, and it's now beginning to look very, very possible indeed. Stefano Della Santa, his face a picture of pain, trying to drag them back into the action. Bugno goes through. Another drink for Johan Museo. And meanwhile, at the back, living all kinds of pain, is Leonardo Piepoli. And looking down here at the Chief Commissaire, who consistently looks behind, he's very worried about the proximity of the Bugno group. And this is Henny Kuiper who's driving the car. And Kuiper now telling the rider, Lance Armstrong, exactly what the gap is. And it's down. It's not good news, in fact, 23 seconds. Now they are still coming back. And you know that this breakaway has never really got away because of the persistence, largely by Della Santa, Bugno and Museo. Piepoli hasn't done any of the chase at all, but you know they could all come back into contention here. There's still another small little rise before the finish. Jalabert and Armstrong are totally committed to the move. They are using just about everything they've got left after their hours of racing today. The total distance, 234 kilometres. And Armstrong turning a big gear, as indeed is Laurent Jalabert. One or two parked cars, unusually so. But this is Spain, not France, of course, and the riders, although all the vehicles are stopped, roads do quite often see cars still parked on them in the cities. Here's the chase group. Della Santa still hunting. Look at him, goes through. Well, a little special sprint here. It was hardly a sprint, was it? Jalabert's turn at the front. He takes the money, and Armstrong in second place. Both of those riders are thinking of a much bigger victory in a few minutes' time. But you know, this group has made progress, and I think going round the top corner there are the vehicles behind the two leaders. And Gianni Bugno here, the winner in 1991, is now looking for another victory and can sense it might be coming his way. He's putting in a lot of assistance here to the two Mapei riders. And Museo is thinking only of arresting Laurent Jalabert. And Bugno might well know that. He might believe that, in fact, Museo will not trouble him if it comes to a finish, providing he gives the assistance now in the chase down. Museo himself, the man who finished 8th in the Henniger Turn, that's the Grand Prix of Frankfurt, 7th in the Amstel Gold Race, 3rd in Liège-Bastogne-Liège, 13th rather, Liège-Bastogne-Liège, 3rd in Paris-Roubaix. They're the high-class performances of Johan Museo this year in the World Cup. He really has shown himself to be a great single-day man yet again. Now, these two are not with the same fluid rhythm they had before. The gap is tumbling. It's only 18 seconds. These are not the roads to have a gap of just around 18 seconds on. It has been a very tenacious lead indeed by these two riders. They've stuck to the task in hand, but so too, we have to say, the four behind. And so too, I've got to say, it's Piepoli, because he's hung on to the back of this piece of string and he is not going to let it go. And don't forget too that when you sight a finishing line, it's funny how you forget you're no longer tired. So he's a rider you must watch out for in the finish. San Sebastian is so close now, the finishing line, down on the front. And there you get some idea what a beautiful bay just off the edge of the Bay of Biscay. San Sebastian is in a fabulous location and right along the coast there. It's a tourist delight. Now then, Bunyo wants a little more assistance, I think from the team car rather than from Piepoli. 10 seconds. We're going to see this gap bridge. We're going to see a bridge with something like 4 miles to go, I think. It's gone up very slightly, but it's nothing now because they can see him now. The commissaire here, I think, will want everybody out of the gap at this stage, otherwise he's going to form the bridge himself. Bunyo is now having a discussion here because they believe they are going to catch the breakaway, and then Bunyo has to make a decision as to what he's going to do when they do catch the breakaway. Now, he may well be told to stop working now. It may be left to the two Mappe boys, Della Santa and Johan Museu, to finally shut the gap down. And then Bunyo, one presumes, is going to try and go it alone. Although he does normally pack a good sprint finish, I'm not sure how much of a sprint any of these riders has left after this cat and mouse chase. It's been a great chase. It's been a great chase, and you have to feel sorry too for these two riders because they made the perfect move, and it was Armstrong who made it, followed by Shiandri, who's no longer in the group. He never got a wheel quick enough to come back in this group either. 5 kilometres from the finish, and the race at the head is almost back together again now. 3 miles to go. Jalabert will look over his shoulder any minute, I would think. He's seeing the cars go by him, the motorcycles rather go by him. He's going to know, they must know that they're right behind. And there's Piepoli pushing them all forward. He's back in the hunt for first place. He's never in his life been at this position in a classic at this time of the race. Inside 5 kilometres, they're going to bridge at around 4, maybe less than that, to go to the finish. Will it be long enough for a few deep breaths from Gianni Bunyo or indeed Johan Museu? Museu just wants the comfort of knowing Jalabert is back at his side. Both riders are great sprint finishes, especially after a tough race. But the points now, the points gained by Laurent Jalabert are going to be negligible. Inspired by the sight of the yellow jersey of Jalabert, Museu is out of the saddle and crossing the gap. Bunyo, perhaps more inspired by the thought of a checkered flag, is now onto the wheel of Museu. 4 kilometres to go, and it looks as though they're going to close the gap between the 3rd and the 4th kilometre from the finish. And how about 3 kilometres, 800 metres as Bunyo goes immediately? That was the discussion. Now look at this. Piepoli's gone. He's sat at the back. He's determined to sit at the back, whoever's in the lead. And right now it's Bunyo, and Armstrong somewhere has waited for the collection and has still found the legs to dig in deep at the front. Gianni Bunyo has found the attack which could have been predicted in chapter 4 of this book, has been caught by the others, and they're all together again. And now they'll take a little bit of a thought about little Piepoli because he's not as weak as we all thought. And on the far side, Della Santa has gone. Now Museu won't react to that one. Stefano Della Santa, that will be a little reward for keeping Museu in the hunt, and Johan will not chase him down at all. He'll take the major points if he can win. Museu is just going to follow the wheel of Laurent Jalabert and hope that Della Santa can give victory to Mappe. Lance Armstrong feeling the pinch perhaps a little bit from the attack at the back of the group now. Piepoli doesn't know what to do. He's found himself at the front. He's looking around. He finds attack comes again from Bunyo. He's left to dig in as these two mark each other, possibly out of the race here. You see, Museu would not close any gap at all. He's making Jalabert do all of the work. He's going to fry Jalabert and beat him in the sprint. And Armstrong has gone. Lance Armstrong has gone after Stefano Della Santa. And I don't know where Lance has found the legs from at this stage of the race. We're coming down to 2.5 kilometres from the finish, and Lance Armstrong in the lead since the Iscabel has found the strength to go, and just look at the speed he's disappeared up the road. He's joined Stefano Della Santa, and you know the combination could be right. He could have read this race to perfection, because Bugno tried twice and failed. Piepoli, I think, is really in trouble anyway with his legs. The other two will play no part because Jalabert hasn't the legs and Museo isn't going to help him. He has a teammate now who's gone forward. Lance Armstrong may have made the perfect tactical ploy here. Gianni Bugno, the only man that speaks the same language as Piepoli in this breakaway, has now pushed him up into the line, and that to me is the white flag gone in from Gianni. Piepoli also hasn't got the legs, so we're now looking by my mark at the first two riders in the 15th running of San Sebastian. A question of whether the United States can claim their first ever World Cup victory or whether the Italians will snatch yet another one in Stefano Della Santa. It's all reshuffled at 3.5 kilometres from the finish. Jalabert looks over his shoulder. There'll be no help anymore now. Armstrong surely is going to feel he's got first or second. Well, even second after it seemed to be wiped away with 3 kilometres out isn't going to be a bad result. But Della Santa too, remember, has done a lot of work in this chase back. He was the major player along with Museo and Bugno to close that gap down. It wasn't an easy chase by any means. You don't hover at around 30 seconds for all those kilometres. Now Armstrong checking it out. He's got the position. Remember, Lance, the battle with Sergei Uchikov in the Tour de France at Revel. Don't make the same mistake and go too soon. This time have a lot more respect for your rival. 1 kilometre to go. He's going to have to try and manoeuvre Della Santa out to the front. The gap is enough now as we get back to the sea, and the gap is 13 seconds between Della Santa and Lance Armstrong, the Group Museo, with Museo on the front. Look at the crowd here now. What a great race this has been over these last kilometres. Armstrong doesn't want to lead anymore. He wants Della Santa to open it up. Della Santa obliges. This is a sprinter's delight, the finish here in San Sebastian. Armstrong has put himself in the sprinter's position. He's got the second place. Now all he needs to do is not to panic, and he will give the United States a first ever victory in a World Cup event indeed. It'll be a good sprint for fourth or third place as well between Jalabert and Johan Museo, but this is the sprint now. The United States are going to sweat on. Armstrong looks so good in second place. This man has ridden today with such great confidence that only Armstrong can exude on his good days, and he's got it today. Armstrong now allowing Della Santa to run and run and run, and now he's going very early from the line. He's around 280, 300 metres still to go, and he must be feeling confident to go that far out. But Della Santa is cooked, and Lance Armstrong has already won this. He's won it, and he's won it cleanly with a timed gap at the finishing line. The United States gets his first ever World Cup victory. Remember, Armstrong has had a second in the Championship of Zurich. Now he has got his first ever win. This is the battle of third place, the points that matter. Can Johan Museo, who's ridden so well, make it second and third at least from Ape? He follows Jalabert everywhere, and then he takes over from Jalabert when it matters most, right on the line. He makes more World Cups than Jalabert. Points rather, which will give Jalabert probably second overall in the competition now. He'll go ahead of Mauro Gianetti, who'll drop to third in the competition. But at the end of the day, it's worked out so well for Johan Museo, not to mention Lance Armstrong. Going further down then, Gianni Bugno gets fifth. Leonardo Piepoli will get sixth. This is the sprint now. They're around about half a minute off the pace there. This will be the sprint from a bunch which has swelled continually on these last closing kilometres. It looks to be about a pack of about 15 to 20 riders now. The pack which still contains Max Chiandri. Don't forget, the rider's so unlucky to miss out on the kill today. Surely Max would have had a top 3 finish in a sprint like that, but it wasn't to be. That's cycle racing. And Max is in this little group which has just got away from the front. He's the one with the dark glasses off. Frank Vandenbroek is here at the back, the guy with the ginger hair. This is the Indurain group, and our Spanish cameras have suddenly cut away to the Indurain group, and they may not show us the finish of Chiandri. But there, yes, we are. I did them an injustice. The long straight up to the finish now, and this is the next sprint. Indurain on the left of our victory. Max Chiandri, in fact, going to take the sprint from Frank Vandenbroek. He's got it on the line, and so Vandenbroek just being beaten there by Max Chiandri on the line. He can only rue the day and wonder what might have been, and what's left of the peloton has come over the line. But what a great race this has been, a historical race indeed for the United States, and it's come just a couple of years after Armstrong finished last in dreadful conditions and in the dark in his first professional race. Now he's come back in 1995, he's won it and become the first American to win a one-day classic. A second they gave him over De La Santa in the sprint, 27 over Johan Museo, Laurent Jalabert and Gianni Bugno. Lance Armstrong has wasted no time in coming to the top. In his first full season as a professional in 1993, he won $1 million when he won 3 races straight, and it included this one at Philadelphia where he also won the American Championship. Then from a small group in 1993, he won his first stage in a Tour de France at the very first attempt. He went on just a couple of weeks later to become the world champion in Norway with a lone win in very bad conditions. Then in 1995 he won the Tour du Pont after twice finishing second, and this year also in 1995 he won a stage of the Tour de France at Limoges. It was only fitting he has now won his first classic. This is how you win a sprint, and you take a good look at Lance Armstrong's face here. He's put the full mask on, he's calm, he's cool. At this point he knew he was going to win. He was toying with De La Santa, who didn't quite know how to get out of the mess he got himself into. He knew he was about to lead out a rider who was clearly stronger than he was. Armstrong, cool and collected, making sure nobody came up on him from behind. The gap was big enough. It was an enormous gap. It opened so quickly from just a couple of seconds to 27. So Armstrong had all the time in the world here to just wait. And yet, with some 300 meters to go, he put everything into one kick. He actually caught De La Santa a little bit off guard. De La Santa didn't really expect Armstrong to go quite so far out from the line, and he hardly offered a resistance. He knew by the speed that Lance came by him, he was never going to get on that back wheel. So Armstrong will live to enjoy this result. A World Cup victory for him. He hinted at it in the Leeds Classic a week ago. Now he's confirmed he really is a man for the one-day races. Even on this shot here, when a rider puts his head down, as Stefano De La Santa did, that's a good sign that they've given up. And in fact, now all that mattered to Stefano was to hold on to second place. In itself, of course, a fabulous finish. Armstrong gets the win and takes the luxury of a look back to see how good it feels, and then gives us his traditional punch to the air and his conducting of the orchestra. And so, after a marvellous career, so be it a short one so far, Lance Armstrong is now the classic winner he's always threatened to be. Here is the reward, a win for him in the 15th San Sebastian Classic, round number 8 of the World Cup. He beat 191 starters. There certainly weren't that many on the finishing line. And when you're in the Basque country of Spain, you have to wear the famous Basque beret. And I have to say, Lance, it suits you. So, upcoming for Lance will be a crack at the World Championships in Colombia, but for a while at least he's going to cherish this day in northern Spain, the first American ever to win a classic race, and he's chosen to do it in San Sebastian. And how strange the wonders of statistics work, because last year Lance Armstrong finished second and Stefano De La Santa finished third. They were both behind Armand de las Cuevas, who didn't start this day. From Phil Liggett in Spain, I hope you've enjoyed this. It's been a historical one today. I'll say goodbye.